think what the world needs now, perhaps more than ever before, is people who are kind and compassionate. I'm a pretty optimistic sort of person, and I think the world is a beautiful place, and there's some more beautiful people in the world who are kind and compassionate than otherwise. But still, I think it's the case that there is a lot of anger in the world, isn't there? And people are quick to criticise, and people can be very negative about other people, and perhaps not be as ready to help as we might wish. So we could do with more kindness, we could do with more compassion in the world. But what is compassion, and how can you and I be more compassionate? Well, Jesus talks about it a lot, about kindness and love and compassion throughout his ministry, but most especially, of course, in the parable of the Good Samaritan in Luke chapter 10. So I just want to think about 4 principles for compassionate living that we can draw out of that parable. Of course, it's set in the context of a religious leader who is speaking to Jesus, and then he asks the question, who is my neighbour? Fundamentally, what he's asking is, who should I show compassion towards? Who is worthy of my attention? Who is worthy of my love? Who is worthy of my help? And Jesus then, of course, gives him the parable of the Good Samaritan. And there are 4 insights into compassion that I think we learn from that parable. And the first is this, that compassion is not based on any sense of worth. The man in the parable was wounded, he was hurting, and the priest walked by, didn't help him. The Levite walked by, didn't help him, because I guess they thought perhaps the man wasn't worth it. There was no benefit to them in stopping, and in fact, if they'd stopped to help him, it would have been more of a hindrance to their life than anything else. So they didn't see him as worth helping, and perhaps they also thought that, you know, he wasn't offering much value to society either, so they didn't see it as anything particularly worth stopping for. But you know, compassion is not fundamentally about people's worth. We don't just show people compassion when we think they have a sense of worth or value to us or to society. It's not about what we can get out of it. It's not about what society can get out of it. We are to be compassionate towards all people, regardless of what they can offer back to us or what they can offer wider society. Secondly, I think that compassion, we learn from this parable, means that we genuinely feel something. The Samaritan who did stop, we are told in the parable, was moved with pity. Now, in the Greek, that's a really, really strong word that is used for moved with pity. It has to do with the bowels, it has to do with the intestines. And so I think that what Jesus is saying is that this person, when he showed compassion, you know, it was quite literally a gut reaction. It's, you know, he saw the man's plight, and it kind of impacted him to his very core, and he didn't judge. He didn't think about, well, is this man worthy of my attention? He didn't think about what sense of personal benefit that he might gain from stopping to help the man. He just genuinely felt for the man. And I think that when we are showing compassion to other people, it comes out of a place of genuine concern and feeling for them. Thirdly, we learn from the parable that compassion doesn't just feel, but it does something to meet the need. The man, the Good Samaritan, so we read, bandaged the man up. He poured oil on him, on his wounds, and then he took him to the inn where he could get better. So when we are to show compassion on people, it's more than just praying for them. Obviously, that's really important. Prayer is really important, but it's actually about doing something to meet people's needs. In the letter of James, we read that we are to be doers of the word as well as just hearers of the word. And so what can you do? What can I do to be offering practical help to people when they are in need? Compassion is a practical response as much as it is a prayerful response. And then fourthly, we learn from the parable that compassion costs something as well. It actually cost the Samaritan to help this individual. Initially, he gave the innkeeper 2 denarii to care for him, and then he said, and whatever else it costs, I will pay you when I get back. So, you know, if we're going to show compassion and kindness to other people, it will cost us. It can cost us financially. It can cost us in terms of time. It can even cost us in terms of reputation as well, because sometimes when we stop and we pause to help people, then we can be criticised by our peers for doing that. So there is a very real cost to compassion as well. And then we get to the very, very end of the parable. And there's a really interesting twist, isn't there, at the end, because Jesus reverses the question. If you remember at the very beginning, the man to whom he was speaking had asked him the question, who is my neighbour? And then Jesus concludes by turning the tables on him and saying, who was the neighbour in the story? So the question fundamentally isn't who is my neighbour. The question for us is, who can we be a neighbour to? It's a totally different question. The question isn't who is deserving of my help, who is deserving of my time, who is deserving of my energy, who's deserving of my kindness and my compassion. The question is, who can I be a neighbour to? Who is there that I can show kindness to? Who is there that I can show compassion to? Who is in need? And who needs me and who needs you to be a neighbour to them? So I think fundamentally, if we ask that question, if we turn that question on its head and we think in terms of, well, who can I be a neighbour to, rather than who is my neighbour, then we won't judge people by their worth to society. We won't judge people by, well, what can they give back to me? We won't judge people by their economic worth, their economic value, and then make a decision whether or not to help them. Instead, we will just recognise their need and we will reach out in kindness and compassion to whoever needs a neighbour at this time. So I would encourage you today, in the light of that amazing parable, to stop asking the question, who is my neighbour? Instead, to ask the question, who can I be a neighbour to? Who can you help today? Who is in need of your help? Who is in need of a neighbour? And in what way can you respond to them? And I think if we do that, if we ask the right question and we seek to be a good neighbour to others, then compassion will abound in society. As I said at the beginning, our world needs more kind people. It needs more compassionate people. Can you and I respond to that and be the people of compassion and kindness that the world desperately needs? Thanks for being with me today. I hope you found that useful, and I look forward to being back with you again really soon. Take care. Bye.